Okay, we're going to get started. So good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar, Online Assessments with Chromebooks and the Google Admin Console, sponsored by Google in Education. We've got quite a few great speakers today. We've got Joel Solomons, Sales Engineer from Google in Education. We've got Kelly Addy and Kendall England from Cherry Creek Schools. We've got Vidya, I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher your last name. She's Product Manager for Chrome for Education from Google. And we've got Rob Nielsen, Software Engineering Manager from Pearson. Just a few things before I pass this off to Joel. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A panel on the far right-hand side of your screen, and we will make sure that they get answered during the Q&A section or at some point during today. And also, by the end of tomorrow, by the end of Friday, you will get a follow-up email with a link to this recording and a copy of the slides. So without further ado, I'm going to pass this on to Joel.
Cool.
There you go, Joel.
Thank you. So hello, everyone, and thank you for joining. We want to give everyone an update on where we are and some of the features you'll be seeing are not actually live yet. Well, we look forward to coming back to this group and showing the full capabilities in the next year. As you can see, this is our agenda for today. So I'll be speaking about the Chrome Management Console and the Admin Console. And then the Cherry Creek School will give a discussion on kind of a case study on how they've used the tools. And then Vidya from our team will also give you a preview of the single app kiosk mode for online assessments and Chromebooks. And then also Rob will also show the TestNav 8 Chrome app. So we might as well get started. So I'm just going to start now with the Chrome Management Console. So as you all may be aware, Google has many products in the education space, and I'm going to focus on Chromebooks management. So however, it's important to understand the ecosystem and how they all work together. So we have the platform, devices, and apps and content. Now the platform, which is Google Apps. So firstly, we offer schools a free suite of services called Google Apps for Education. These include Gmail as your email service provider and things like docs, spreadsheets, and presentations for content creation. Since Google Apps are all web-based, it means that they're available for any device with a web browser. They're also great for collaborating because multiple people can be creating and editing at the same time. The apps and content come from the web, and an example is through the Chrome Web Store and the YouTube for Education. There are thousands of applications that span all different subject matters and grade levels, and all of these applications can be used on the Chrome browser. The Chrome browser can be installed on any device, so effectively these apps can be used on any device. Lastly, we have the devices such as Chromebooks, which are simply a means to access this platform. So Google provides you with a platform in Google Apps. We provide you with strong web-based content for things like the Chrome Web Store, YouTube for Edu, and the Google App Project. And finally, we offer devices that allow you to pull together the platform and the content to design transformative curriculum for your students. Chromebooks are computers that give you a fast, easy, and affordable way to get to the web. So as this webinar is focusing on Chrome and the benefits of managing Chromebooks, let's take a quick overview of this. Chrome has a built-in management feature, or has built-in management features, and these options are what to refer to as Chrome management. Now remember, this relates to the Chrome the browser, which is available for all major platforms, in addition to Chromebooks, which offer even more management features, as Chromebooks actually run Chrome OS, and that's Chrome as the actual operating system. So let's talk more about Chromebooks and the Chrome management. So one of the critical differences with Chromebooks compared to every other device on the market, they're incredibly easy to manage. If you're in tech or you talk to your tech department, you know that managing devices takes up a significant portion of their time. Buying licenses, installing software locally, setting up antivirus controls, and continually checking to make sure they're running and updated, wiping, re-imaging devices periodically, all of these things are very time-consuming and cost-intensive. Since the Chromebook devices are entirely web-based, it makes management a breeze. Chromebooks shift the model away from the old way of managing where you have to go device by device, installing software, installing antivirus, running updates, clearing memory space, etc. With Chromebooks, you can manage all of your devices through one centralized web page for the management console. Through the admin console, you can control device settings, set security controls on all your computers. For instance, you can specify who can sign into your devices, whether you want users to be routed through a proxy server, and whether to block certain things like cookies and plugins. And this is just a one-time $30 fee for one time per device. So what does Chrome Management allow you to actually manage? There are over 120 policies currently, and we're continuously adding more and more every quarter. These policies apply to users, devices, apps, which I will show shortly in my demonstration. Furthermore, with management, you're entitled to 24-hour, 7 days a week phone support, and we have support teams all over the world. So what I'm going to do now is just show you the actual admin console and where you manage Chrome. So this is the platform here, and you just log in via admin.google.com. And as some of you maybe, if you've used Google Apps before, it's the same console that you. Sorry, I'll just share my screen. Sorry, I forgot to share my screen. All right, now you guys should be able to see my screen now. So as I was saying, this is the admin console. And if you've used Google Apps or you're a Google Apps customer today, it's the same console to manage Google Apps as Chrome. So you can see here I've got all my users on the left here, but what we're going to focus on here is the device management. So I'm just going to click on device management and then go to Chrome management. And as you can see here, here's all the settings for Chrome. Now the two main features we're going to focus on in this webinar have got to do with user settings and device settings. So I'm going to start with user settings here. So we'll start with user settings. So now many of you have heard of Chrome Sync or even use it today. This allows you to log into Chrome and then synchronize your bookmarks, passwords, history, etc. This is similar to how user settings work. They apply to whoever is logged into the Chromebook. So as you see here up the top left here, as you can see here, these are the OU structure that you've created for Google Apps, and the Chrome management uses the same OU structure. So as an example, I'm going to show you some of the most popular user settings. And one of them is in relation to manage installation apps, manage pre-installed apps, sorry. So as an example, I've got my school here, and say if I wanted my grade 6 students to have a Spanish app. So all I have to do is select the grade 6 students here, click on Manage Pre-installed Apps, say there's a Spanish one I know, I click on them, this is the app which I wanted, I literally click Save, and then save the changes, and now that means anyone who's in the grade 6 OU will have that app pre-installed on their Chromebook. Now there are a huge amount of other features here, and I'm just going to show you one of the most popular ones as well, further down. So you can set things like pages to load on startup and so forth. So what we're also going to talk about quickly is just the device settings. So as I mentioned before, all these settings are only applied if the user's logged in. So with the device settings, which the management allows, it actually allows you to specify which users can log into the actual device. And that's very important. So you can lock it down so only certain users within your domain can actually log into the devices. So that's just a quick run through of some of the settings and how the admin console is used to manage Chrome. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. And I'm going to pass it on to our customer here, Kendall.
Thanks, Joel. Thanks, Joel. This is Kelly 80 and Kendall England with Cherry Creek Schools. And I think Kelly's going to start us off here.
Just to give everyone a little background about kind of where we are with our Chromebook deployment in Cherry Creek Schools. We're in Colorado. We're part of kind of the Denver metro area. We have 60 schools currently, and we'll be opening a new elementary school in the near future. And we also have over 51,000 students that are part of Cherry Creek Schools. And we passed a bond last year, and with that bond money, we decided to deploy Chromebooks throughout the district. And we decided to deploy over 18,000 of them, and we began that process, at least purchasing and deploying earlier in the fall. So right now we have 18,000 kind of spread out throughout the schools. This is not a one-to-one initiative. These are being housed in carts, and we have a ratio based on school level. So at our secondary schools, those schools were given Chromebooks at a 2-to-1 ratio, and then at the elementary schools, it was a 4-to-1 ratio for grades 2 through 5. We've been a Google Apps district since 2008, so we were pretty familiar with the management console before we even got Chromebooks. So we had a comfort level there with kind of jumping in with Chrome management. But our Chromebook implementation was driven by some specific needs that we had as a district. For one thing, we needed to dramatically increase our access to web-based learning and creation tools. We have a goal of having anytime, anywhere, any device access. And we have a mixed device environment. Some schools have Macs, some schools have PCs, some have iPads, some have Samsung tablets. So we needed something that could kind of coexist within our current infrastructure and be a seamless transition for kids whether they were at school or at home, regardless of device. We also needed to manage those devices easily and quickly at both a district level and at the site level. So we needed some oversight that we could set kind of policy at a global level, and then also have key people at the schools that could then be a little more granular with settings they wanted for their specific devices. And we were really pleased with the web-based management console, which means that our school-based admins could basically manage the console from anywhere as long as they get to the internet. Despite our bond that passed, we didn't necessarily get staffing or any kind of increase for our IT support. So when we were looking at deploying that number of devices, we had to think about what could we put into schools that would require minimal impact or minimal need on our IT staff. And also at the school level, we needed something that could be easily managed. And Chromebooks seemed to really fit that bill for us. And then finally, we also are very cognizant of our shifting standards for the Common Core, and the Chromebooks really seem to fit really well with our instructional goals we had for the Common Core state standards, including our own state standards. And we also, of course, have online assessments that are on the horizon, and we wanted to, of course, invest our time and money into something that would be compliant for our upcoming assessments, both at the state and at the national level. So what we decided to do is we decided to do something with the public session settings, which Joel didn't really cover. And I'm going to let Kendall kind of talk about how we've used the public session for online assessments. This is really not what we're talking about for PARCC. We use this for map testing from NWEA, but it's one way that you can do testing in an online environment where you don't have a single app kiosk mode like we'll see with TestNav 8. So, Kendall.
Okay, thanks, Kelly. So in our environment and our organization, Joel kind of talked about a structure where you can have a different hierarchical. And what we decided to do, since one of the scenarios that you can use the assessment testing with is, and the Chromebooks with, is making users. So basically they're generic users. But one of the things we learned about a week before we were going to do that was you can't log into the Chromebook so many times with the same user, or you'll trigger something in Google that says you can't log in that many times. So luckily the public session came out right at the time when we needed it. So we reconfigured that one public session at the very top level of our organization, and then we have sub-organizations per each school. So as schools want to redo their public sessions for maybe the kindergartner or first grade class to surf the internet, they can use this session like we did, or we are using currently for this map test that we do. The beauty is This account has no password, so nothing new for the teacher to learn or the kids to learn. All I have to do is log in. We can block the internet with the URL blacklisting and the URL blacklisting exception list. We can allow our specific test to go to a lockdown browser experience. Some of the issues that we have had, but we are slowly working through them, has been some wireless bandwidth problems when it comes to Chromebook updating. And we also have seen that the Chromebook public session, when used with the login screen where you have pictures as opposed to username, password, you actually lose the public session. Now this is going to be fixed, we've been told, later, so that public session becomes kind of the priority one tile when you're looking at pictures. But I think ultimately, and I think we're going to talk about it more, the TestNav is the single app kiosk mode is kind of where we see even our own map tests going in that direction, I think. So I think that kind of sums up how we're using the Chromebooks for a public session and an assessment test that is not related to TestNav, but it's that same experience, and using one of the scenarios that Google offers for the Chromebook. So I think we're going to pass it to Joel next.
Thanks, Kendall. Hi, everyone. This is Vidya from Google. I'm a product manager on the Chrome for Education team, and very glad to be here. I'm going to give you a quick overview of the different methods and options for doing assessments using Chromebooks today. The list is sorted in chronological order. There are 3 different options available today. Option 1 is you can hold assessments through provider-issued accounts, where the testing provider provisions secure user accounts, and students can then take the test using these accounts. The second option is using the public session kiosk mode that Kelly and Kendall spoke to earlier. In this mode, the school really configures the account with certain properties and policies for testing through the Chrome admin console. And the third option is our newest option that we very recently launched, called the single app kiosk mode. And in this option, the testing provider creates a secured Chrome app that creates a completely secured lockdown browsing environment for the user and the students to take the test. So all that the school would need to do is deploy the secured Chrome app through the Chrome admin console, and they're good to go. For the rest of the demonstration, the focus will be on the single app kiosk mode and how the Pearson TestNav 8 Chrome app works in this environment. So now TestNav 8 on Chromebooks. So first, some prerequisites. We would need to use Chrome OS 31 to have TestNav 8 Chrome app working on the Chromebook. You will need to use the single app kiosk mode and deploy the TestNav 8 Chrome app using the Chrome admin console. And remember, the steps to deploy the Chrome app, the TestNav 8 Chrome app, using the Chrome admin console is just a one-time setup. So step 1, there are 4 easy steps that an administrator of the Chrome admin console would need to perform, and this is a single-time operation. Step 1, go to the Chrome admin console, navigate to the device settings option under device management, Chrome management, device settings. You can select any organization unit where you have devices placed for your students. And for that organization unit, you would go to the section called Kiosk Settings. Under Kiosk Settings, there is an option which says Single App Kiosk. Enable Single App Kiosk by saying Allow Single App Kiosk. Step 2, click on the link which says Manage Kiosk Applications. Step 3, go and select the TestNav 8 Secured Chrome app. So once that's selected, you would see the app here. For demonstration purposes, the app is called TN, and you can see that the TN app is available to be installed. Step 4, you just hit save, and your changes are saved. So once your changes are saved, the devices under this organization unit, in this case, it's under my root organization unit called goog.edu.test.org, and all the devices in this root organization would have the TestNav 8 Chrome app pushed down and deployed automatically, and all these devices would be available for secure testing using that app. So now this is the student's desktop view. So once the app has been pushed down, the student opens up the Chromebook, and here in the login screen, the student gets to select any list of secured apps that have been pushed down. In this case, the TestNav 8 Chrome app has been pushed down. The student can click on Apps, select TN, click on it, and it would launch. So I'll give it to Rob now, who is the engineering manager from Pearson, who can give us a quick demo of the TestNav 8 Chrome app.
Hello everybody, this is Rob Nielsen from Pearson. I'm just going to do a quick demo of the TestNav 8 Chrome app. It's just going to do a fairly quick demo, it won't be that long. So I'm going to share the application. And I'm just going to log in with the demo user. And now we're essentially launching the application. This application will look the same if you do it within a browser or within the Chrome app. And this is just some sample content. This is nothing that's associated with any of our customers. It's just kind of give you an idea of what it looks like. So the first page you come up to is this login screen, and it'll have the name of the test and tell you some information about the test, and then we can launch the test. And this test here has only one section in it, so it has 20 questions. And the first item here, this is a typical fill-in-the-blank one. You can basically answer a question, then you navigate to the next question. This is basically a hotspot one, where you can do multiple cardinality, and this one here you only can pick a single cardinality. So in this case, we're trying to find where London's located. Some of the different accommodations we have built into this form. This is just a representation of the few we've done so far that are in this form. Here's a magnifier. You can zoom in. This one has a line reader, so if there are students that need to be able to have accommodations around what they can see on the screen at a time, you can use a line reader to help limit what they're looking at. Another one is if there's an accommodation around color of the display, there's different ways you can change the display to be displayed. Here's an example of a drag and drop. Here's one with a graphic in there. Here's a multiple choice or multiple answer. And if we navigate back, your responses will still be there. Here's a chooser. Here's an open-ended item. And you can also scroll within the actual text here to see what's, when they answer the question. The same example, but this one here is actually a rich text editor. You can this is like a complex items. We have both a multiple choice, or actually both a selection, and you can enter some. You can do a fill in the blank. Some more drag and drops. Some more examples of drag and drops. These are just Here's one here. You can actually take some text. You can drag parts of the text into the answer here. I guess this is a good sampling of what we have out there. I guess it's what I was planning on showing. So if someone else wants to go back to the presentation, whoever's next.
I think it's time to move to Q&A now. So we've got a bunch of questions that have come in. Hopefully everybody can hear me. So we're just going to start a little bit back at the beginning because I know folks had a couple questions about the management console in particular. So can Google Apps be synced with Active Directory?
Yes, the first question was, can Google Apps be synced with Active Directory? And the answer to that is yes. There is a tool called Google Apps Directory Sync. And with that tool, you would be able to sync your directory structure from Active Directory into Google Apps.
So let's move on to...
So the next question is, can I force a specific web proxy to the device management tools? Yes, we have proxy support as a user policy and a device policy on the Chromebook, and with you would be able to support any third-party proxy out there.
There have been a few questions about Smarter Balanced, and we just wanted to address that as well. Smarter Balanced is a different consortia, so this webinar is focused on PARCC and the Pearson TestNav 8. We will do some additional information about the Smarter Balanced assessment in the coming year.
So there is a question, do you specifically create a separate OU and add only the Chromebooks that are going to be used for testing in that OU, or do you set the public session for all Chromebooks? It is entirely up to you. The entire environment is very flexible. The type of configurations we have typically seen is schools want students to be able to use the same device for learning and for testing. So you would use the same OU structure that you have for your students today and just create either a single app kiosk mode if you're pushing, say, the Pearson TestNav app in there, or create a public session card, which can be used for testing other type of applications if needed. So there is another question about single app kiosk mode. So for NWEA map testing, will NWEA need to create a Chrome app? And the answer for that is yes. The provider would need to create a secured Chrome app that can then be deployed easily by the school for use in the mode, just as Pearson has done for TestNav 8.
There are a few questions on the timeline of when TestNav 8 will be available. Rob and or Wes from PARCC, would you like to answer those questions?
Yeah, the TestNav 8 app will be released by the end of February, and I also think there's some other questions about TestNav 8 in general. The app will be free from the Chrome Web Store, and let me see what else I see out there. And the Chrome will be approved for PARCC. I think that's what the context of showing this demo was, because PARCC is one of Pearson's customers that will be using TestNav 8. And this is TestNav 8 only, so if any customers are on this call that are using TestNav 7.5, this Chromebooks will not work with TestNav 7.5, only with TestNav 8.
Yeah, I want to jump in on another question. Someone asked whether or not you could import text into TestNav, and absolutely not. That's what the secure single app mode does for us, is it secures the device so that you cannot import anything into the test, you cannot export anything from the test.
That is correct.
Quickly.
Oh, sure. This is Wes Bruce. I'm on the technology group for the PARCC assessment.
We had a question about formative assessments versus summative assessments.
Yeah, so with the summative assessments, the high-stake assessments that we have been talking about so far with PARCC and so on, the single app kiosk mode or provided secured accounts are general options used. For the formative assessments, we find schools are using public sessions a lot, and that is a good modus operandi.
From the TestNav A perspective, if we have a customer that is providing formative tests, they'll more likely be unsecured tests, which could be ran directly in the browser. You wouldn't have to use the TestNav app unless you wanted to. And I also saw a question earlier about Pearson's Proctor caching software. Yes, TestNav 8 will take advantage of Proctor caching software that we provide.
There's a question on, will the Chrome app for TestNav 8 work on Chrome browsers on non-Chromebooks? Rob, do you want to answer that?
Yes, the app is actually it's just a Chrome app, and it will run on other devices besides Chromebooks, but you will not be able to take tests that require the device to be secured. That was only available if it's installed as a kiosk app on a Chromebook.
That is using the single app kiosk mode.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is Wes, and another way to maybe answer that question, or to answer part of that question, is that you will be able to use the Chrome browser on a Mac or PC, other traditional computer to use TestNav in a more traditional sense. So it'll provide, the Chrome browser is also approved for use for the PARCC test and provides the same lockdown as does Firefox or IE.
There's a question about whether a school was told that they would still require Java on the desktop for Windows and Mac. Rob or Wes, would you like to address that?
Yes, if you're using the browser, it does require Java, and I know right now there's a problem with Java on Macs. Chrome is 32-bit, and Java on Macs is 64-bit, so we do not, unless that changes, we cannot support Chrome on Macs.
But the short answer is we actually use the Java runtime to secure or to put any of the browsers into single app, essentially that kiosk mode.
That's correct.
That's in which to kind of back up, because there was a question earlier about are we moving away from Macs and PCs. The goal of PARCC and Smarter Balanced, I'll speak for them on at least this point, is to deliver a test that can be, is to have a test that can be used on almost any device that's being used for instruction. And I say almost any because there are some comparability and legal issues around the defensibility of tests that we don't need to get into today, but that's why we have our minimum requirements. But our goal is to let schools choose how they want to have students use technology as a part of instruction, and then be able to deliver the test on that same technology.
I just seen a question from Josh. There's somebody asked about single kiosk mode. That is a feature of Chromebooks only, and so that is the reason that we can only use the Chrome app on Chromebooks, is because that feature is only available on that operating system and not Windows and Mac with Chrome, unless you use Java. And that's the traditional 7.5 model we had before, where Java would be used to secure the desktop.
There is a question around formative assessments and what do we do if you have formative assessments. Again, the solution for formative assessments would be you can use the public session kiosk mode because it can be school configured and doesn't have to have any involvement with the provider per se. And if you have high-stake assessments, you would need to use the single app kiosk mode as was demonstrated.
Yeah, the example I ran through, it was what would be used in a formative environment. That it was a non-secure test. Since we cannot do, I could not do a demo on the Chromebook. I actually ran this from my PC, and that would have been more of an example of a formative type of assessment if one of the Pearson customers, decide to do that.
So there've been a couple questions about the PARCC test and how it gets delivered. So I want to see if I can give you kind of a broad overview. The Pearson is providing TestNav as the platform to deliver the PARCC assessment. So if you think about that as the engine that's going to serve up the test, PARCC is developing the test, the items. TestNav will deliver the PARCC high-stakes assessment to all the PARCC states. TestNav is available or is accessible using the full range of devices that we've talked about. So PCs, Macs, in the using the traditional browser-based access to TestNav, but there's also a TestNav version for iPads and for Chromebooks. We're talking about Chromebooks today, so it's not dedicated to one particular device. Again, the idea is that those tools that students are using regularly for instruction will be able to deliver the test on them.
And I did see one question back there about Java being required on Windows, and yes, that is correct. You will need to use Java on Windows.
Yeah, Windows, Firefox, or the Chrome browser all require Java in order to do the security, to create the kiosk mode on those devices. That's different than what happens with Chromebooks, where you've got a way to manage it and to create that single app mode where TestNav is the only thing that students can run, and provides that security.
That's both Windows and Mac. They both require Java to secure the device.
Okay, so there is a new question that's come in. Has PARCC verified that Chromebooks are acceptable devices to use for the assessment? And the answer is yes. I think Wes can talk about it too.
Yes, so the single, in fact, the release of the single app mode actually makes it easier to certify that. We're on the PARCC side going through the final UAT before the field test, but as we've said in our technology specs, Chromebooks are an approved device for the PARCC assessment.
Okay, there's another question that's come in. Can a device being used in the morning for testing be used in the afternoon for regular classroom operations with no changes made on the console with the new kiosk mode? Yes, absolutely yes.
In that case, essentially would power down the device, select that app, and then it'll start up, and then you're done. You just power the device down again and log in as a normal user.
That's right.
So there's also a question in relation to like Google Apps for Education, education-specific privacy policy. if you just go to our Google Apps website, google.com/a/edu, and you can look up the Google Apps for Education Agreement, and in there it states all the privacy concerns and questions.
There are a number of questions about when schools will be able to try some of the sample sets. I know we addressed this a little bit earlier, but perhaps, Rob, you could outline the plans for sample and in just a little bit more detail.
I don't think that's a question I can answer.
Could you?
So again, earlier, the end of February timeline is
yeah, I think the question was around the actual sample questions. The actual app will be available at the end of February, but when will the sample questions be available? I think that's what you're asking.
Yeah, so the PARCC sample items will be available in January. In kind of that will be running in a public version of TestNav. It's actually called ePATS on the Pearson side. So it'll be accessible from essentially anywhere. It's a web-based delivery, and the PARCC sample items in that format, which are the ones that are already posted on the PARCC website, but they're not currently living in the TestNav 8 environment. And so the January launch, the end of January launch, will be to have those up in the dedicated environment. And I said end of January. January 17th is the date for the sample set release, sorry.
There's a question about the internet connection. It's essentially the TestNav 8 running on a Chromebook will behave just like TestNav 7.5 has. So if network connectivity gets lost, we save responses locally on the device so they can be restored at a later point.
So there's a question here, security is a major concern. If files are saved to the cloud, do they become property of Google? No, with Google Apps for Education in our terms, all the data is owned by the person who created it. You can also refer to our Google Apps agreement, as I said before, on google.com/a/edu, and just look up terms of agreement at the bottom.
And if, Rob, if you don't mind advancing the slide one more, there's a link there that has, for anyone who has further questions about assessments and Chromebooks.
Oh, sorry.
No worries.
And there's a question, if there's videos going to be a part of assessment? Yes, some of the assessments may contain video. It's all up to the writers of the assessments.
Thanks for your patience, everyone. There's a ton of questions coming in, so we're sifting through them as fast as possible. So sorry for all the pauses.
Yeah, there's a question from Karen, which Liz will probably be able to answer. Will I be able to access this webinar recording? And yes, you will, but Liz probably have more information about that.
There's a question around, can the PARCC assessments be delivered without device management? And the answer is no. The school would need access to the Chrome admin console to be able to use single app kiosk mode and secure testing.
There's a question about data. If the internet's lost, yes, the data is stored locally in the Chromebook.
can answer that. There is a question around, with Google support for a Google Apps domain, how do we direct questions that are specific for PARCC to the Google Apps for Education group? Is this something that, Vez, you can answer?
Sure. PARCC-specific questions can either go to your every state has a PARCC lead, but there's also the PARCConline.org website has a place for questions, and we'll respond to them there. Because some of these questions, to be honest, you're talking about a test that multiple states are using. Sometimes it's better to start with the state because PARCC doesn't make all the rules. There are laws and rules in place in every one of the states that are part of PARCC that we have to work through, and so certainly though those more specific PARCC questions, you can send them to like I said, there's the PARCConline.org has a place for questions, and we'll get back to you there. In terms of the privacy concerns, PARCC also has a privacy policy that's publicly posted that is very specific, that says the student level information that comes from states in order for students to test online, and you've got to be able to authenticate that it is that particular student in that school who's taking the test. That is all the property of the states. It's not owned by PARCC. PARCC doesn't keep it. PARCC is, and its vendors are using that, but to deliver the test. But all of the data is owned by the state, the districts, and the schools.
There is a question around assessments through user accounts was listed as one of the methods the test can be delivered. How must it set up to meet the security requirements? So with the first approach, the provider would actually configure these accounts for each student and would completely ensure that the account is locked down and provide that to the school. And the school would then use each of the secured accounts just for the purpose of testing. So it's just a different method of creating a similar secured environment. There's another question around, is it true that public session mode, you can only have access to hosted apps as it says in the setup screen? And the answer is yes. We don't support all forms of packaged apps and extensions at this time for security and privacy reasons. There's another question, how best can we verify that the device is ready to be used with TestNav for PARCC? So once you complete the 4 easy setup steps, the student would be taken to the login screen, and you would see the app and the Chrome, TestNav Chrome app in there. The student launches it, and it's in complete full screen mode, locked down, screenshots are disabled. It's a completely locked down, secured environment at that point.
So there's a question about the local save option. So the TestNav actually requires that there's a backup location in case of an issue with a device or the internet connectivity. So on Chromebooks, that encrypted backup file does get stored locally on the Chromebook itself. And I want to clarify, switch gears a little bit and clarify the comment, and Rob can correct me if I'm wrong, about Macs. I believe the issue with Macs right now that currently exists is around the use of Chrome as the browser on Macs. We've done extensive testing with Macs using MacBooks and Macs using Safari without any problems in terms of the PARCC assessment. Rob, you want to?
Yeah. The problem with Chrome testing with Chrome on Macs is Chrome is a 64-bit application, and Java is, actually Chrome is 32-bit and Java is a 64-bit application, and you cannot run Java with Chrome. It's just not supported. So if you went and tried installing Java, you'd get an error message that it doesn't work. So we cannot lock the device down since we don't have the ability to run Java within Chrome. It does work with Safari or Firefox, since they both have 64-bit versions.
There's a question around, we have been using role accounts for various online tests. How many simultaneous logins before there are issues? So we don't recommend, we at Google do not recommend using the role account approach, where a single account is shared by multiple students for taking a test, because there is a certain threshold before which our spam abuse thresholds get triggered, and it could lock the account down. We don't have an exact number. There are a lot of factors which go into account before that particular threshold gets triggered. So our recommendation, if you want to use a shared account, is to go the public session kiosk route. The public session is really a shared account without a password, just as Kendall described earlier. And once that account has been set up with all the properties for testing, you can pretty much have your students use that public session mode and log in, basically enter the session without entering a password, get into that session, take the test, and then, you know, exit the session. So that would be our recommended approach.
I see a question out there about network shares. There's really no way to do network shares with Chromebooks, so the data will only be stored on the device.
Yeah, and in terms of, there are a couple of questions about backing up the data and the security of the data. So the data, when students take the test, the data is backed up in two ways. One is as they answer questions, after they get a couple of questions answered, then the computer, their device talks to Pearson servers, and their answers get transmitted to the Pearson servers. But at the same time, as the student's going through and answering each item, this backup file, encrypted backup file, is written to their device, and in cases, sometimes, most often, to a secondary backup file, so that if the connection is lost, then when the student logs back into the test, they resume at the point that they were when the connection was lost. None of their data is lost. Their data is served on both the Pearson servers and backed up on their own device in those local save locations. The configuration of those local save locations is all covered in terms of the training that we do around TestNav. I don't want to get into it too much, but you know, there is the ability to do to handle that. It's a requirement of TestNav, and that's something that we'll talk to you in terms of the TestNav workshops.
Yeah, in that regards, with the Chromebook app, it actually is stored locally with, you know, in a storage area that the app only has access to. And for Chromebooks, there won't be any specific configuration. That's more for the Windows and Mac environments where you have access to the file system. Yeah,
we want to reiterate that in order to use TestNav on a Chromebook, that Chromebook has to be in that single app kiosk mode. The TestNav app will not start unless the device is in that state, so that it is secure. The whole point here is to have that app have the test and only the test running, so students cannot search the web, cannot take pictures, cannot do instant messaging while they're taking the test.
There's a question on, can you clarify the price point for the per device management capability? And was So the answer is it's a perpetual license. It costs $30 per device. There has also been another question around Smarter Balanced. So Chromebooks have been certified as approved devices by both PARCC and Smarter Balanced. This webinar is focused around PARCC and how Pearson TestNav 8 app, Chrome app, can be used on the Chromebook.
We are just about at the end of our time. Liz, I don't know if there's anything that you're seeing that we have not yet addressed.
No, well, there are a lot of questions, but the WebEx does allow me to export all the questions, so you will all have copies of every question that was asked and who asked them. So what you choose to do with that information afterwards is up to you on your end. What I was going to say for my little bit of follow-up is that you will all get an email by the end of Friday with a copy of this recording and a copy of the slides to download. So you will get that whether if you registered and attended or if you did not attend. I know some people had issues getting into the webinar. So that is my end of webinar spiel. So if there are no other questions and no one from Google or PARCC want to answer any more, we can wrap it up now.
Yeah, I have given all the answers that I wish to give today. I just want to thank all the attendees for their interest, and you know, please, if there are PARCC-specific issues, you can go to the parcconline.org and submit those questions, or talk to your state PARCC lead.
And from the Google side, also thank you so much for joining. We will, when Liz gives us all these questions, which are great, we will make sure to add to the help page that is linked to at the end of this presentation with the answers.
And this is Rob from Pearson. Thanks for attending. I hope this was useful.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, great.
Thank you, everyone.
And big thanks to Kelly and Kendall for joining from Cherry Creek Schools.
Thank you.